Hola y bienvenidos amigos. Hello and welcome friends. Steve here, Street Smart Travel, coming at you from Pasto, Colombia. So I managed to travel into Colombia at the end of December. I've been up here for about a week and a half and it has been unbelievably amazing. Today I will be unpacking my December travel budget numbers as I do every month, just to give you an inside look into how much it costs or how little it can cost if you choose to travel the way that I choose to travel in. And I will say that trip into Colombia, basically getting from Ecuador into Colombia, was about a third to a half of my budget for December. I'll unpack that as we get into the numbers. And before we do, thank you to all the new subs. We're up around 330 as I film this. Thank you for joining, for subscribing. If you have any comments or questions, want to know anything about what I'm doing, please hit me up. Happy to share anything I can. Also want to say I just launched a Wednesday series called Street Smart on the Ground. That will be in answer to comments and questions and dealing with one specific topic or issue per video. Mostly things that you can put into use immediately if you're doing this kind of travel. And basically tips to help you avoid getting into nasty situations. The first episode that I just released was about visa issues, that specifically in Ecuador and specifically with one visa facilitator, people unfortunately are having a lot of issues that are costing them money and time and a lot of undue stress. So if I can share practical information and actionable things you can do to avoid getting into those situations, I consider that my public service announcement. What I'm doing with these videos is creating a library of work, a resource that I wish had existed when I came out on the road over 3 years ago. Because I couldn't find that resource, I decided to create it. Part of that is these YouTube videos, up over 90 something videos to date on the channel, and I will also be adding more content to the website at streetsmarttravel.com. If you can't find answers to the questions you have over those two resources, please drop me a comment, ask a question. I'm happy to target these videos and these topics to things that people actually want to know right now. This was my second most expensive month of 2025. And the numbers there are $299.50 US on the month, which was $427, just under 428 Canadian dollars for the month. On the daily, that was just under $10 US per day and about $14.25 Canadian daily. The reason that was one of the more expensive months is because I was traveling around a lot. So December for me started in Cuenca, the most popular expat city in all of South America. I was volunteering at the Otorongo apartments. I will put a link to that video in case you haven't seen it. And from there, I spent an entire day traveling to the jungle, so to a city called Tena in the Ecuadorian Amazon. And then I went a little further out to a Kichwa community, an indigenous community where I'd volunteered before, and that is Uchuculin in Ecuador. And I spent 3 weeks there. Amazing time. I'd been there before. The host was great. I ended up celebrating Christmas there with a Kichwa community, with actually his family. And I posted some videos about that. I can put a link to those in the description as well if you want to check those out. So that was the numbers for December. A lot of traveling. Like I said, $299.50 US or just under $428 Canadian. And by the way, when I crossed into Colombia, that was 2 days of travel. I went from the jungle, traveled up north to Otavalo, a city in the northern part of Ecuador, and then from there the next day I crossed into Colombia. And by sheer dumb luck, I crossed into the only open border crossing, land border crossing, at that time. I had no idea that was the case. So Ecuador implemented significant restrictions on its land border crossings with Colombia and Peru starting December 24, 2025, limiting international transit to only 2 official points: Rumichaca on the northern border with Colombia and Guayaquillas on the southern border with Peru. And a whole bunch of reasons why they did that. I didn't know that happened, and I was traveling on the 27th of December, so sheer dumb luck, I happened to pick the only functioning land border crossing to get from Ecuador into Colombia. And it was very smooth, very easy. They asked me 2 questions at immigration in Colombia. One, where are you going in Colombia? And I told them I'm going to this place just outside of a city called Pasto. And they said, okay, what are you doing there? And I said, I'm going to be doing some volunteer work. And they said, enjoy your stay. That was it. And then crossed into Colombia. As a Canadian coming into Colombia, and this is why my December budget was as high as it was, there is a fee. So because the Canadian government charges Colombians a biometrics fee, the Colombians charge Canadians that want to visit Colombia the same thing. And that ended up being a little over 100 Canadian dollars. So those last few days of December basically were about between a third and a half of my entire month's budget because I was traveling around a lot, had buses, taxis, hotels, and the entrance fee to get into Colombia, and then more taxis and buses to get up here into onto the finca overlooking Pasto. Totally worth it. Anytime you travel, there's obviously going to be more expenses than if I'm just hanging out in the jungle or in the mountains. When you're moving around, the meter's running. Let's take a look at this guided hike through the jungle in Uchuculin, Ecuador, down in the Amazon. Enjoy.
Ja, ich kann den so easy